Hello dear learners, I am Dr. Sheena Thomas from the Department of Education at the Bhopal School of Social Sciences, and I believe that the e-content platform offered by the Bhopal School of Social Sciences has become a great medium of learning for each one of you. Why did I start with the topic of learning? Because the very topic I am going to discuss today is on learning theories. So let's move ahead on understanding what is learning and what are the types of learning. But today basically I'll be discussing a particular type of learning theory, which is the behaviorist learning theory. So first and foremost, why learning and why is this so important? See dear friends, the way we define learning is exactly the same the way we are going to teach in class. It has a long-lasting implication in the way we facilitate learning. And that is why it is very important to understand what is learning and how we frame our definition of learning. So that we as teachers, we as budding teachers would be able to teach our children the way we define learning. So let's understand through some examples, through some definitions, how actually learning is defined. So what is learning? It's just a recap to maybe many of you, but then for the better good of many others watching this channel, I would say learning is relatively a permanent change in behavior. Here you look in each word, permanent change in behavior. So what does permanent change in behavior mean? Any learning or anything comprises or falls in the category of learning only when it brings about a permanent change in behavior. For example, if you say that, I know how to cycle. So you might not have cycled for past 10 years, but if you still pick up a cycle, do you feel that you'll be able to manage it? Yes. Because that has some way or the other impacted your behavior. You're not scared to pick up a cycle. Why relatively permanent change? Because, the degree may vary. The degree may vary to, higher degree to a lower degree depending on the practice you have had. For example, all of you have learned Sanskrit. Maybe in your school days, like all those budding teachers who are watching me right now. So you have learned Sanskrit, so you know that yes, you are in say with Sanskrit, but you may not be in complete know-how. But when you were writing exams back then in your 10th standard, you were in clear know-how of how to handle Sanskrit as a subject. But over the course of time, you've forgotten. But still, when you get back to the subject, you will get back to the understanding of the subject. That is the meaning of permanent change in behavior. Like for example, swimming. So you might have learned back in your childhood, but still when you see a swimming pool, you feel like, getting into a swimming pool and you're not scared of water because you have won over that fear of water because you've exercised this in your classes of swimming. So I hope this is very clear to you when I say learning is relatively permanent change in behavior. Alright, so we can go on with examples like, be it cooking, be it probably if we go to ancient times, there was something called a shorthand or computers, language skills. All these come under the category of permanent change in behavior. Let's move on. So coming to the initial objective, so why study learning? So the most important point is, most human behavior is learned. Most of it, be it language, be it, the very mannerism of how you walk to how you talk to how you eat, most of it is learned through the environment. So it is very important you understand the concept of learning and you understand it rightly. So the awareness, what happens next? The awareness of the learning process will allow greater understanding, not only of normal and adaptive behavior, but also of the process itself. Okay. Then, of course, there is a close relationship between principles of learning and educational practices. It is definitely pertaining to the pupil teachers, pertaining to school teachers and others, but it has a close relationship between principles of learning and educational practices. I hope things are clear by now. So let's move ahead to understand further on learning theories. So learning theories provide instructional designers with verified instructional strategies. Okay, this is a world of design, strategies. So until and unless you have a framework of how to take it forward, you won't actually know how to get over a lecture of 40 minutes also. So you need to understand the mind of the child, of the student, so that you deliver content to them. So that is why it is very, very important to understand learning theories. That is one thing. The second, there are many and you can go on, the list is endless, but I've just highlighted on the major few. Knowledge of a variety of strategies is critical when attempting to select an effective prescription for overcoming an instructional problem. So when you say an effective prescription, just imagine the doctor. You go to a doctor and you tell them that this is the problem. So the medicine, you hope that the medicine is going to cure the problem. But somehow if the medicine is not providing you the healing, what you do? You end up going to a different doctor because you ultimately want the problem to be solved. So for that, you just switch doctors. But that cannot happen with schools and school systems. How many schools are the students going to change? So that is why it is very, very critical to select an effective prescription, because these are times of individual differences. You have an understanding, and these are times of divergent thinking, and these are times of a variety, and you will have different students in your class. So it is not a time of one size fits all. So you will have to keep in mind that every student is an individual who has a learning appetite, who has a different pattern of learning, and for that you have to actually get down to that level of the child wherein he learns. And our concept of learning should be to bring about a permanent change in behavior. If that is not happening, I really doubt the process of teaching and learning which is happening in classrooms. Can you really call it learning? You take a minute's pause and think. If this is not happening, I strongly feel that there is actually no learning happening in classrooms, if you are not bringing about that permanent change in behavior. So we need to design our teaching in a manner that there is a permanent change in behavior. Third, learning theories provide information about relationship among the instructional components. So there has to be a balance, there has to be a checks and balances in between, and the relationship among the instructional components is taken care by these learning theories. So, what are the historical foundations? The historical foundations of these current learning theories have their roots in the past. So, basically, we'll be over the course of time looking into three kinds of learning theories, that is behaviorism, cognitivist, and the constructivist learning theories. However, in my today's class, I'll just be basing my thoughts on the behaviorist approach of learning. So, what is behaviorism? Let's listen in. Behaviorists attempt to prescribe strategies that are more useful in strengthening the stimulus-response association, the SR, that is the stimulus and the response. Okay, so I'll just go a bit detail into what is stimulus and what is response. So stimulus is probably an action which stimulates a reaction. Okay, for example, if somebody gets a tight slap, so definitely there will be a reaction from the opposite side. If there is a something falls from the top which makes a huge noise, so you definitely jump out of your seat that something is going to fall down. So stimulus and a response, a particular action which evokes a response, that is stimulus, and of course a response is the response. So this combination, SR association, is something what happens in the behaviorist approach of teaching and learning. For example, if I say 8 3s are, so what happens 8 3s are? Immediately the student says 24. So 8 3s are becomes the stimulus. You're right. Guessed it right, I presume. And 24 becomes the response. Alright, so no attempt is made to understand the structure of students in this approach. No attempt is made to understand the structure of students' knowledge, nor to understand which mental processes are needed for them to use. So, nothing goes in this process of the theory, nothing goes to understand the makeup of mind. What constitutes the mind and how actually the students learn, nothing. They're just basing their approach on the stimulus response. That is what you have to understand. SR theory, right? The learner is responsive to the environment as opposed to taking an active role in it. Responsive to the environment. So it is like more of a rote memorization. Responsive to the environment, like children learn probably the rhymes, like children become repetitive in classrooms. So this is an approach to that, to the environment. They respond to the environment, but as opposed to taking active role in it. So they may actually say without much understanding. So a child may say 8 3s are 24 without understanding that multiplication is repetitive addition. I hope you're getting my point. So there is no understanding, or it may be, it may not be, but may not be. You cannot generalize it probably with all students that they are making an understanding. So this is SR theory, or the behaviorist approach of learning. The most crucial factor is the arrangement of stimuli and the consequences within the environment. So how do you arrange it? One should follow the other. There has to be a pattern. So that brings in this crucial component of arrangement. Okay, how do you arrange it? So there has to be a sequence which follows in a manner which evokes the right response. If it doesn't happen that way, then probably you lose the link. I hope you'll all remember children learning answers in probably 6th and 7th. So if you skip 1 or 2 questions, so they'll say, just give me the first word, I'll remember the entire thing. So there has to be a stimulus, and you just give the first word and they'll just go on non-stop with the complete answer. I hope this brings back many memories to your mind as well when you are listening to me. So this is how the behaviorist learning theory works. Transfer of learning happens through generalization. So the basic process is through generalization. How do you generalize it? Stimulus and response. This method of learning has been proven reliable for facilitating learning involving association, generalization and chaining. So definitely association stands for this SR theory. Generalization, so it will happen for most of the learning which has more of conventions, wherein you require this method of learning. And the chaining. Chaining means you group together. And the sequencing, the arrangement, what we spoke of some time back. So these things comprise together of the category of learning theory called as the behaviorist approach of learning. So what do we achieve in all this? Or what is the goal of the behaviorist? Of course, it is to elicit the right responses. Elicit right responses. Okay, so this we cannot rule it out. Of course, this is not highly appreciated in today's time because it doesn't involve an active role of the learner. However, there are times wherein this works hugely, the stimulus and the response can be accomplished by the right cues and right pairing. So a behaviorist who comes to my mind at this point of time, you all can read in the subtle contents available online. It is on Ivan Pavlov. He was hugely known as a behaviorist, and he was awarded the Nobel Prize for the experiment he had done on conditioning, which is called as pairing. So this was all about the basic understanding of learning, and today's class we confined to the behaviorist approach of learning. I hope you will wait on for the next few lectures wherein we will understand on the cognitivist approach of learning and the constructivist approach of learning. Thank you so much for tuning in.